To walk through life as if nothing bothers you is not arrogance, it is discipline. It is the result of mental training, not indifference. It is clarity, not apathy. The Stoics aimed for this condition because they believed that peace must be built internally. If your calm depends on silence from the outside world, you will never hold it for long. But if it is anchored inside you, shaped by your judgment, protected by your reason, then it cannot be taken. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. To act as if nothing bothers you is not to pretend. It is to place your energy only where it matters. It is to sort through what enters your perception and determine whether it deserves your reaction. This way of life is deliberate. It is trained, and it must be practiced daily. This video will explore 10 chapters of Stoic principles that allow you to carry yourself with calm, resilience, and dignity regardless of what surrounds you. You will learn how to reduce your emotional reactivity, protect your peace, and build the kind of presence that reflects strength without needing to announce it. This is the Stoic path. It is not about pretending you feel nothing. It is about controlling what you allow to shape you. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Your calm is your responsibility. The Stoics made it clear, the outside world does not owe you peace. That is your job. Every distraction, insult, inconvenience, or discomfort is simply a test. It is an opportunity to apply what you say you believe. If you need your environment to be perfect before you can stay calm, then your calm is fragile. Epictetus reminded his students that the key to strength is understanding what belongs to you and what does not. You cannot control other people. You cannot control their moods, their decisions, or their opinions. But you can control how you carry yourself. This is where power begins. It is the starting point for a stable life, one built on your own actions rather than the conditions around you. When something disturbs you, pause and examine the chain of events. Ask yourself, did I grant this the power to shake me? Did I treat this external event as if it had control over my mind? Often, you will find that you cooperated in your own disturbance. Even if someone else caused the situation, your internal response is your decision. You have the ability to choose stillness, but that choice must be made deliberately. The moment you feel irritation rising, observe it carefully. Do not act on it immediately. Let it appear in your awareness like a visitor at the door. Examine it. Ask whether the situation truly deserves your emotional involvement. Ask whether giving it your attention will create a better outcome or make your thinking clearer. Most of the time, it will not. Acting on every emotional impulse creates noise. It drains clarity. It invites further complication. The emotion itself might be automatic, but what you do with it is not. You are not locked into a pattern of reaction. You have the space to choose. Irritation, frustration, and anger gain strength when they are left unchecked. But they weaken when you name them and keep them still. You can observe the emotion without accepting its demands. You can let it rise and fall without carrying it into action. You are not required to speak from that mood. You are not required to shift your posture, tone, or behavior to reflect it. You are not required to allow it into your decisions. These emotional reactions only shape your life if you hand them the authority to do so. A Stoic sees the regulation of emotion as part of their duty. They do not leave their mind exposed to every thought that enters. They protect it by applying consistent routines. They reinforce it through study, reflection, and structure. They treat the mind as a system that needs to be maintained, not a force that can run wild. When you treat your mental responses with discipline, you preserve energy and reduce unnecessary suffering. The Stoic trains like a soldier, not in the physical sense but in the mental. They understand that pressure is a given. Difficulty is expected, so they prepare for it. They practice returning to principle under tension. They rehearse how they will respond before the moment arrives. Their calm is not improvised, it is trained. Their silence is not confusion, it is clarity. They focus on building strength, not seeking ease. They do not require the world to act in accordance with their preferences. They do not wait for events to be fair or convenient. They recognize that people will interrupt, traffic will slow, opinions will clash, and things will break. They are ready for this. Their mind is positioned to remain balanced regardless of what appears. They do not depend on conditions. They depend on preparation. When a situation escalates, the Stoic returns to what they value. They measure their response against their own standards. This process is not always easy, but it becomes more accessible through daily effort. It becomes the starting point for how they carry themselves. The presence of discomfort becomes a reminder to apply what they know. This repetition creates a strong pattern, one that replaces reactivity with grounded action. To act as if nothing bothers you means you have trained your inner filters. You do not suppress what you feel. You place each feeling where it belongs. You study the emotion before you act on it. You let thought come before speech. You weigh your principles before reacting. You do not avoid difficulty, but you treat difficulty as a tool for self-correction. Each challenge becomes a signal to reinforce what you believe. This approach requires effort. It requires practice. It is not something that can be borrowed, copied, or handed off to someone else. It is a personal discipline that must be built through repetition and conscious effort. Calm is not installed. It is cultivated through the choices you make each day. The way you respond to stress, to insult, to delays, and to noise all reflect how well you have prepared your mind. No one can do this preparation for you. No one can set your values or define your limits. Your principles must be your own. Your clarity must be earned. The strength to remain composed in chaos does not come from wishful thinking. It comes from doing the mental work before the pressure arrives. That work includes reflection, journaling, silence, and the repetition of intentional action. These are your internal tools. They must be kept sharp. Discipline does not appear on command. It grows slowly through application. It is shaped by your decisions and refined by your failures. It is held in place by your ability to keep going after difficulty. You test it when you're provoked. You test it when you're tired. You test it when you're criticized. Each test is a reminder of your training. Each situation that tries to pull you out of character is an invitation to remain grounded. You carry this with you, even when no one is watching. You live by it in silence. You repeat it in private when no one sees your restraint or your discipline. This becomes part of your foundation. It does not depend on validation. It grows quietly in daily repetition. You reinforce it in the smallest moments, when you wait without complaint, when you choose not to react, when you remain clear in the presence of confusion, and when you step back from conflict, because peace matters more than proving a point. This way of being becomes your posture. It becomes visible in the tone you use, in how you listen, and in how you make decisions. You build trust with others because your reactions are steady. You become reliable because you are not easily moved by mood or tension. You do not raise your voice to be heard. You do not shrink to keep peace. You remain composed in how you speak, how you walk, how you respond. This does not happen suddenly. It is formed in the discipline of countless small choices. These habits form the base of your stability. They serve as the mental architecture that holds your behavior in place. They create the emotional space that allows you to pause and reflect rather than react. They make it easier to stick to your principles in moments of uncertainty. They become part of who you are. They shape your identity into someone who is clear, steady, and unmoved by noise. This is how the Stoic moves through life, with a calm that has been earned through repeated training, with a mind that is not drawn into every shift in the environment, and with values that are tested and reinforced by real-world difficulty. This is not a single act. This is a system. It is the result of daily decisions made in the direction of strength, reason, and clarity. This is the path of those who act with intention rather than reaction, and who protect their energy by remaining firmly rooted in what they can control. Chapter 2. The Discipline of Assent. Every reaction begins with a thought. The Stoics taught that before you feel disturbed, you must first grant your assent to an impression. You must agree that what you saw, heard, or experienced deserves to upset you. That moment, between impression and emotion, is where all your power lives. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He meant that the mind exaggerates and distorts, but it only does this when we allow it. If you train yourself to pause, to inspect what enters your thoughts, you can decide what becomes emotion and what is dismissed. The mind tends to amplify discomfort. It turns a small comment into a personal attack. It turns a delay into a failure. It builds stories around simple events. These stories are not facts. They are assumptions shaped by fear, pride, or habit. When you observe this tendency, you can begin to separate what happened from what you imagined about it. This separation is where your clarity begins. You can strip an event of the meaning you attach to it. You can look at it again and ask, is this as serious as it feels? You can learn to identify the moment when you give meaning to a situation and stop giving it unnecessary weight. The discipline of doing this consistently builds your mental structure. When someone insults you, the words do not harm you unless you interpret them as true or as worthy of your energy. If you treat the insult as noise, it fades. If you treat it as a command, it enters and unsettles you. The insult does not have force on its own. It waits for your agreement. When you face a delay, it only disturbs you if you believe the delay is wrong or unfair. The delay is a neutral event. You decide how to interpret it. You decide whether it interrupts your state or simply adjusts your plan. You have a choice in how you relate to what happens. That choice is called the discipline of assent. The Stoics used this term to describe the ability to accept or reject impressions. When a thought enters the mind, the first impulse might be emotional. The second moment is the decision. That is where training begins. You can learn to inspect impressions instead of acting on them. You can give them time to show what they really are. This slows you down and helps you avoid acting on false judgments. This discipline must be practiced. It cannot be activated only when emotions are strong. It must be trained in simple situations. When a message is delayed, when someone interrupts you, when plans change, these are the moments to practice. It means that when something enters your awareness, you do not immediately react. You examine it. You slow it down. You ask, is this useful? Is this harmful? Is this something I need to respond to? Is this something that can be ignored? You ask, is this worthy of response? Does this deserve my attention? Can I afford to give this my emotion? Each of these questions builds a filter between the outside world and your inner world. That filter protects your focus. It allows you to deal with what matters and set aside what doesn't. This space between impression and response is what allows you to live with control. Without this filter, your mind is shaped by every interaction. With it, you remain stable. This discipline makes you harder to provoke. It trains your mind to pause instead of react. You develop the ability to sit with discomfort without letting it turn into noise. You become less controlled by mood. Your decisions begin to carry more clarity because they are not shaped by impulse. You speak with care. You respond with thought. You do not feel the need to win every interaction. You focus on what is useful, what is necessary, and what aligns with your principles. It lowers your emotional noise. You are less pulled by fleeting tension. You start to notice how much energy is lost through pointless arguments, internal complaining, and emotional storytelling. That noise used to fill your thoughts, shape your responses, and damage your relationships. Now, with practice, you reduce that noise. You stop feeding it. This gives your attention room to move with direction. It becomes easier to hold your focus and to keep your actions consistent. You are less likely to speak in frustration or act from confusion. Your language becomes more controlled. Your pace becomes more thoughtful. You stop rushing to be understood or to defend yourself. You do not jump to conclusions. You listen longer. You think before you react. You build the habit of restraint. That restraint does not make you weak. It makes you exact. It removes waste from your behavior. It creates space for clarity to guide your next move. You become clearer in your decisions and more stable in your presence. People around you begin to notice that you are not easily disturbed. You do not carry chaos with you. You are not quick to judgment. Your presence becomes defined by steadiness. This makes you easier to trust because your behavior does not shift with the atmosphere. You are not always explaining your mood. You are not always recovering from emotional errors. You remain composed under pressure, and that consistency becomes your advantage. It protects your energy. You stop wasting strength on what you cannot shape. You stop feeding your thoughts to things that do not matter. You do not try to control opinions, outcomes, or appearances. You choose where your attention goes. That choice is a source of power. It allows you to stay present in your work, in your goals, and in your relationships without being drained by every disturbance. It reduces wasted thought and misplaced emotion. You stop repeating the same mental loops. You stop imagining every worst-case scenario. You stop assuming the worst in people. You stop creating inner tension where none is needed. That clarity saves you from burnout. It strengthens your direction. It helps you stay in control of your actions even when the environment changes. It allows you to stay directed in the middle of disruption. You do not drift into complaints. You do not get pulled into emotional traps. You stay close to your principles. Even when others are acting out, you remain grounded. Even when things fall apart, your values give you structure. Even when plans fail, your effort continues. You are able to keep acting with clarity because you trained yourself to return to reason, not reaction. You do not need to control what happens. You only need to control what you accept. You do not try to force outcomes. You try to make sound judgments. You work on being stable, not on being praised. You focus on the quality of your response. You keep your energy where it belongs, on your own conduct. That focus makes you harder to move and easier to respect. It clears the fog that strong emotions can bring. It helps you see things as they are. You stop magnifying problems. You stop dramatizing delays. You stop turning neutral moments into personal attacks. With emotional clarity, you return to facts. You evaluate situations without emotional distortion. You notice how often your previous reactions came from fear, pride, or assumption. This clarity protects you from misjudgment. It allows you to stay honest and accurate, even when things are uncertain. When emotion clouds judgment, small issues feel large and distant problems feel urgent. That distortion leads to poor choices. It causes regret. It creates unnecessary conflict. But with clear thought, you keep those issues in proper proportion. You respond to what is real, not what is imagined. You base your actions on what can be done, not on how you feel about it in the moment. You can act from principle. You can rely on what you've trained. You do not need to find a new solution in every crisis. You already know what to do. You have already decided how you want to carry yourself. You stay close to that decision. You remind yourself of your values. You use those values to cut through emotion and select a response that reflects your identity, not your temporary mood. You can choose a response based on reason. That response does not need to impress anyone. It does not need to be explained. It only needs to be clear and correct. You are not aiming to win arguments. You are aiming to live in alignment with your own values. You are aiming to move through each challenge without abandoning your character. This discipline gives you space to choose. That space is where your standards live. It gives you time to think. It gives you room to breathe. It allows you to separate yourself from the situation long enough to ask better questions. That space becomes the distance between emotion and action. It gives you the margin needed to respond instead of react. It is where your values direct your decisions. You stop asking, "What do I feel like doing?" and you start asking, "What would a disciplined person do here?" That shift in thinking gives you access to a different level of control. Your values speak louder than your mood. Your clarity speaks louder than your pride. You follow the track that your principles already created. That space is what separates immediate reaction from deliberate response. It is the filter between the outer world and your inner world. It is the guard that stands between your emotion and your actions. Without that space, your behavior becomes a mirror of whatever is happening around you. With that space, your behavior becomes consistent with who you want to be. That space protects your energy and keeps you aligned with the person you aim to be. It helps you hold your posture. It helps you remain patient. It helps you keep promises. It helps you stay respectful even when you are challenged. That space becomes the core of your discipline. In that space, you protect your character. You remember your principles. You stay loyal to your structure. You avoid the regrets that come from speaking in anger or acting in fear. You respond with steadiness. You maintain control. And once you begin to live from that space, you build a habit that makes calm behavior your default. This habit does not depend on how you feel in the moment. It is built through deliberate practice. It becomes stronger each time you choose patience instead of reaction. It becomes easier to access each time you choose silence instead of noise. It becomes part of how you live. This is not performance. This is the result of training. This is how you carry yourself with dignity, presence, and strength, regardless of the situation. Chapter 3. Presence without performance. To act as if nothing bothers you is not to perform indifference for an audience. It is to be grounded in your presence, whether seen or unseen. The Stoics did not train themselves so they could appear unshaken. They trained so they could be unshaken. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. That means your stability should not depend on making a point, proving someone wrong, or being praised. It should depend on principle alone. You are not responsible for how others act, but you are responsible for how you respond. If your behavior changes every time you are insulted or misunderstood, then your identity belongs to others. But when your principles shape your behavior, your actions remain consistent. This is the meaning behind the quote. It is not about winning. It is about staying rooted in character. When your presence depends on outcomes or reactions from others, it becomes unstable. The performance of calm is fragile. It collapses when tested by pressure, stress, or resistance. If calm is used as a tool to impress others, it becomes empty. It does not last when conflict appears. But when calm is built through practice, it becomes steady. It becomes reliable in moments of challenge. This is what the Stoics aimed for, inner stillness that holds its form without needing to be displayed. True presence is private. It exists in the way you wake up, how you speak to yourself, how you carry yourself when no one sees you. It does not need external attention. It does not seek approval. It is developed quietly, away from attention. It is steady when no one is watching. It is not a show. It is a standard of behavior that you maintain for your own sake. It does not need applause. It exists whether or not it is acknowledged. It is built from repetition. It is built from daily review. It is built from reflection and journaling. It is built from measuring yourself against your values instead of other people. When you fall short, you correct it. When you get reactive, you study it. When you speak out of turn, you notice it. These corrections form the structure of true presence. You become someone who watches their own mind, who takes their own principles seriously, and who does not abandon their code in exchange for approval. This kind of presence makes you trustworthy. People begin to sense that you are steady. They do not expect you to overreact. They do not expect you to shift your personality based on their behavior. You become dependable. You are not always explaining your emotions or justifying your reactions. Your stability becomes visible. It is not loud, but it is clear. People feel your clarity. They feel that you are not rushing to speak. They feel that you listen without the need to interrupt. They feel your ability to observe before acting. They feel your ability to endure without complaint. This endurance is not passive. It is a trained skill. It means you are not quick to broadcast discomfort. You deal with what is in front of you. You focus on action rather than noise. You respond without creating more disruption. This quiet strength builds trust. People respect your ability to remain composed. They rely on your ability to hold yourself steady even when the situation does not support it. These are the signs of a person who is anchored, a person who has rehearsed the act of restraint, a person who treats each moment as a chance to show consistency, a person who is not pulled into every emotion or drawn into every performance. This anchored presence does not need to be loud. It needs to be firm. To carry yourself with presence means to remember what matters. It means returning to your values in small moments. It means reviewing your conduct, not to judge it, but to learn from it. It means removing the need to perform for others. You do what is right because it is right. You follow your standard because it defines you. You take each conversation, each conflict, and each moment of silence as a test of your posture. It means resisting the temptation to posture or impress. The Stoic does not waste energy proving their calm. They simply stay calm. They do not decorate their character with appearances. They live their character through choices. They do not pursue attention. They pursue discipline. This restraint is a form of strength. It keeps them focused on what they can control, their thoughts, their words, and their actions. It means your worth is internal. You measure it through daily conduct. You review it through honest reflection. You hold yourself accountable without shame. You adjust without blaming others. You aim for steady improvement without needing to be recognized for it. Your standard is your guide. Your principles become your compass. Your calm becomes your strength, and your strength becomes quiet. The Stoic trains for this daily. They do not treat it as a single lesson. They treat it as a practice. Each morning is an opportunity to reset. Each challenge is a chance to apply. Each review is a chance to refine. This daily effort creates presence. It is not dramatic. It is not reactive. It is not performance. It is a way of carrying yourself that can hold firm in any situation. It is quiet. It is disciplined. It is earned. Chapter 4. Stay grounded when challenged. When you are challenged, your reactions reveal your training. The Stoics believed that adversity does not introduce weakness. It reveals whether your principles are ready to carry weight. When tension rises and things go against your expectations, your mind will search for a familiar path. If you have built the habit of reacting with irritation or force, that is where you will go. If you have trained yourself to stay grounded, then clarity will follow. To act as if nothing bothers you does not mean you feel nothing. It means you do not lose control in the presence of difficulty. Your emotions may appear, your frustration may rise, but your actions do not reflect that disruption. Your tone stays measured, your thoughts remain organized, your mind remains disciplined, your posture remains centered. You see the difficulty, but you do not allow it to take ownership of your conduct. You let it move past without giving it more power than it deserves. This posture is the product of repeated training. It is not based on ignoring problems. It is based on choosing how to carry yourself when those problems appear. You remain steady because you have built a standard for how to behave. That standard is stronger than your moods. It is something you rely on when external conditions begin to change. You are not building responses in the moment. You are applying what you have already rehearsed. When someone challenges your beliefs or questions your decisions, you do not need to defend out of pride. You can respond with structure. You can slow the moment down and approach it with clarity. You can examine the challenge and answer it with reason. You can make your point clearly without raising your voice. You can hold your voice steady and maintain your principles without needing to dominate the other person. The Stoic does not view disagreement as a threat. They view it as another chance to apply reason. This is what it means to be grounded, to let reason guide your conduct, especially when your ego is under pressure. It requires discipline to pause before responding. You may feel the pull to react, to correct someone, or to defend your pride, but you do not act on that initial impulse. Instead, you return to your principles and ask what the situation actually requires. You make decisions based on clarity, not emotion. You maintain your direction even when provoked. Your calm is not conditional on the actions of others. It is maintained by your choice to follow reason. To remain grounded means you are aware of the emotional pull, but you choose not to follow it. You can feel frustration rise and still choose measured behavior. You acknowledge the presence of tension without making it the center of your action. You accept the presence of discomfort without turning it into an excuse to abandon your standard. You observe what you feel, but you act based on what you believe. You are not required to engage every tension. Most disturbances do not need your participation. You can witness the storm and still walk straight. You do not need to prove your position in every discussion. You do not need to correct every misunderstanding. You choose what matters. This is not neglect. It is selective attention. You are not forced to match energy with energy. You can be in the same room with loud, reactive people and still remain calm. You can witness sarcasm, hostility, or impatience and respond with stillness. You are not required to mirror the chaos around you. You are able to set the tone by preserving your center. You can maintain your posture and still be present. You can remain calm and still be involved. You do not have to remove yourself from the moment to remain clear. You stay grounded in place. You hear what is said, but you do not absorb it into your identity. You stay connected to the reality of the situation while remaining independent of its emotional pull. You can speak clearly without adding heat. You do not need volume to make your point. You do not need emotional weight to make your response strong. The clarity of your voice is enough. When your tone is calm and your message is simple, it becomes harder to provoke you. The conversation moves with less friction. You are not reactive, so others are forced to meet you with more structure. You do not step into drama just because it is nearby. You see where the road leads and choose not to take it. You recognize emotional traps. You sense when a situation is designed to bait you. You move around it without needing to explain why. You do not abandon your posture for the sake of winning a short argument. Staying grounded also means being able to observe the whole moment. You are not rushed by emotion. You are not cornered by reaction. You take a pause before forming a conclusion. You give space to the moment. You let things settle. You review what you heard before deciding what it means. You consider whether your judgment is being influenced by fear or by ego. The Stoic does not rush to interpret. They give each moment room to be seen fully. They reduce the chance of misreading what is in front of them. They take a pause before judging the situation. They do not let pressure accelerate their thinking. They watch, they listen, they take in the full scene before choosing their next step. They ask whether this moment will matter tomorrow or next week. They test its value across time. If the answer is no, then they adjust their response to match its actual weight. They avoid treating minor disruptions as if they are life-altering events. They use perspective as a tool to reduce unnecessary emotional load. They ask whether it deserves a reaction or only attention. Many situations need nothing more than awareness. They require you to notice them and move on. The Stoic learns to distinguish between what requires effort and what requires restraint. They avoid pouring energy into situations that offer no meaningful return. They ask whether the disturbance is real or imagined. The mind often fills in gaps with assumptions. The Stoic filters out the imagined offenses, the perceived slights, and the projected fears. They look at what actually happened and strip away the mental story that exaggerates it. This process is a mental filter. It prevents emotional overload. It helps them stay accurate. It prevents simple moments from being distorted by personal bias. The clearer the filter, the more grounded the response. This distance gives them the ability to respond without creating more disruption. It stops escalation. It removes fuel from unnecessary tension. It creates a buffer between stimulus and action. This buffer is where sound decisions are made. The Stoic places high value on this space. It helps prevent careless words. It protects relationships. It guards against saying something you cannot take back. It keeps your integrity intact. Your speech becomes purposeful. Your silence becomes protective. It prevents small issues from becoming large ones. You do not allow temporary discomfort to grow into permanent resentment. You keep your responses appropriate to the scale of the moment. You limit emotional waste. You hold your posture. It keeps the conversation directed instead of scattered. You return the focus to the point. You do not chase distractions. You do not get tangled in emotional side trails. Your calm presence keeps the dialogue steady. When you create that space between the situation and your reaction, you give yourself a better chance to act with control. You are not hijacked by your environment. You are not following emotional signals. You are responding based on structure, not sensation. You are no longer moved by the emotion of the moment. You are guided by your principles. That guidance provides stability. It helps you move with intention. It protects your decisions from being temporary responses to temporary problems. You do not have to attend every conflict. You do not need to engage just because someone wants to argue. You can listen, assess, and choose stillness. You are not required to carry another person's chaos. You can respond with stillness and remain unaffected. You can notice tension and choose stillness. You can be aware of rising pressure and not participate in it. You can be clear while others are scattered. You can remain structured while others are reactive. This is strength in restraint. You can observe disrespect without rushing to match it. You are not required to imitate poor behavior. You can respond from your own values. You do not let the behavior of others shape the quality of your response. You do not have to carry every emotion into action. Feelings can exist without being expressed. They can be processed without being displayed. You allow the emotion to pass through without letting it control your next step. You are allowed to feel something and choose to wait before expressing it. That waiting creates room for clarity. It prevents regret. It gives time for the right words and the right tone. It gives space for your standard to return and lead the way. You can let something pass without it becoming a mark against your identity. You do not need to fight every accusation. You do not need to correct every perception. You know who you are. You do not surrender your time and energy to proving it. That moment of stillness is not weakness. It is control. It is the ability to recognize your strength and choose peace. It is the awareness that your conduct defines you more than your arguments. This is restraint. This is self-command. It is the expression of clarity under pressure. It is the habit of patience. It is the refusal to let emotion rule decision. It is the ability to protect your energy by limiting what you respond to. You conserve energy by saying less. You conserve dignity by reacting less. You preserve stability by guarding your focus. It is the decision to carry yourself in a way that reflects who you are rather than how others act. Your values shape your actions. Your preparation shapes your tone. Your decisions reflect the character you continue to build. This is the behavior of a mind that has been prepared. It is the work of reflection, repetition, and deliberate restraint. It is the sign of someone who has rehearsed how to act before the moment arrives. It is not accidental. It is shaped by habits. It is the outcome of disciplined thought. It is the result of years of preparation, where each choice formed a new standard. It is trained. It is repeated until it becomes the new standard. When you act from this place, you preserve your peace. You keep your strength. You move with consistency. You speak with accuracy, and you make it clear through your actions that your mind is your own. Chapter 5. Emotional distance is mental strength. Emotional distance is not withdrawal. It is clarity. It is the ability to recognize what belongs to you and what belongs to the world. The Stoic creates space between stimulus and reaction, between event and judgment. This space gives them control. It is the internal room where they choose what to amplify and what to ignore. Many people react without that space. They feel tension and speak from it. They feel slighted and act from it. Their behavior becomes a mirror of the environment. There is no filter, only reaction. Their tone rises with the tension around them. Their posture stiffens with defensiveness. Their decisions come from what they feel in the moment rather than what they believe. The environment leads, their mind follows. This is what Stoic training prevents. The Stoic builds emotional distance through observation and habit. They install a delay between the outer event and their inner response. That delay gives them choice. This emotional distance is a tool. It allows you to hold your thoughts without immediately turning them into action. It gives you space to ask, is this useful? Is this necessary? Is this aligned with my principles? Without that space, reactions dominate. With it, judgment improves. Emotional distance is not about suppressing what you feel. It is about giving your mind room to decide what to do with that feeling. Emotional distance does not make you less human. It makes you less vulnerable to manipulation. When someone tries to provoke you, they are trying to control your state. They are testing your attention, your pride, or your insecurity. If you immediately respond, they succeed. They have used your energy without earning it. They have changed your behavior with a few words or a small action. But if you notice the attempt and let it pass, they lose access to your attention. You remain clear. Your mood stays stable. Your posture remains unchanged. Emotional distance gives you an advantage. It prevents others from gaining leverage through your reactions. It keeps you consistent in your tone and choices. It protects you from becoming a puppet to every opinion or insult. This control does not come from avoiding others. It comes from managing what you allow to enter your decision-making. The fewer things that move you, the stronger your direction becomes. This form of discipline is strengthened through journaling, review, and reflection. The Stoics would rehearse insults, loss, and pain in their thoughts. They would bring imagined difficulty into their awareness and test how they would respond. They would imagine being criticized, rejected, or misunderstood. They were not hoping for these events, but they trained so they would be less shaken if those events arrived. They believed that if you only train when the pressure appears, you are already behind. This is the practice of emotional distance, building space now so that clarity exists later. That preparation reduces surprise. When you are already familiar with difficulty in your thinking, you are better able to handle it in reality. You are less likely to overreact. You are more likely to apply your structure. You are not trying to build your response in the moment. You are applying what you already practiced. This method strengthens your internal system. It helps you remain calm when the external world changes. It helps you reduce the number of things that can unbalance you. It sharpens your awareness of what matters and what is noise. You begin to recognize patterns. You become more difficult to influence because your reactions are not easy to trigger. You do not need to feel less. You do not need to remove emotion from your life. You need to decide when to express and when to observe. You need to learn which emotions deserve action and which do not. You need to develop a filter between what is felt and what is shown. That filter becomes a source of strength. Not every feeling requires speech. You are allowed to feel something without explaining it to others. You are allowed to reflect before responding. You are allowed to give your emotions space without giving them control. When you speak too quickly from emotion, you often add confusion. When you wait, your clarity grows. Not every mood requires action. You are allowed to carry a heavy mood without turning it into a decision. You are allowed to experience disappointment or pressure without changing your behavior. The Stoic does not ignore these moods. They hold them without rushing to act from them. That patience creates better judgment. The Stoic builds a system of self-command by applying structure to their emotional world. They know that emotions will continue to appear. They do not expect peace from the outside. They prepare peace on the inside. Their goal is not constant comfort. Their goal is consistent control. That control is earned through habit. That structure becomes a reliable tool under pressure. It gives you rules to follow when the mind wants to drift. It gives you steps to rely on when emotions rise quickly. It helps you return to what matters. That structure becomes your anchor. It allows you to stay composed in difficulty and return to clarity faster after disruption. With this system in place, you remain yourself even in situations designed to make you forget. Chapter 6. Let silence guard your power. Speech reveals thought. In moments of anger, fear, or pride, it is easy to speak quickly. But speech can carry your power away if used carelessly. The Stoics trained themselves to delay speech, to speak less, and to be more exact. They understood that silence is not empty. It is control. To act as if nothing bothers you, practice speaking with precision. This begins with reducing the need to speak for emotional release. Speaking clearly requires knowing exactly what needs to be said and why it matters. Words should serve a purpose. They should direct, clarify, or correct. When your speech is precise, it reflects the control you have over your inner world. You avoid adding unnecessary emotion to a situation. You stop turning conversations into competitions. You speak with discipline, not as a way to discharge frustration. This protects your mental energy. Do not speak to impress. Speak from understanding, not from a desire to be admired. When you speak to be seen, your words lose weight. They are shaped by appearance, not meaning. When you speak to retaliate, you abandon control. Your tone becomes sharp, and your purpose is lost. You begin responding to pride instead of facts. These forms of speech increase tension and reduce clarity. Speaking with intention reduces this noise. It creates order where chaos could easily grow. Speak to add clarity or to resolve. This directs the conversation toward understanding rather than conflict. Your goal is not to win the interaction, but to remove confusion. You speak when you have something useful to contribute. If a response will lead to order or peace, you use it. If the situation is already clear, you allow silence to complete the moment. This reduces the need to defend your ego. When you stop using speech to protect your identity, you become harder to provoke. You speak less because you are not reacting to how others see you. You speak only when your principles require it. This discipline keeps you focused. It reduces verbal clutter. It lowers the emotional noise around you. It allows you to stay calm even while others increase their volume. Let silence become a filter. Use it as a protective space between feeling and speaking. It gives your thoughts room to settle. You allow the first wave of emotion to pass without expressing it. You give your judgment time to regain its structure. That pause often reveals that no response is needed. The insult may not be worth answering. The misunderstanding may correct itself. The accusation may carry no truth. By waiting, you avoid amplifying things that would fade on their own. When provoked, pause. Let the first impulse pass. You do not act on it. You examine it. You ask yourself whether it is coming from emotion or from understanding. You check whether your reaction will move things forward or backward. Most conflicts grow because of impulse. That impulse can be delayed with awareness. Examine what needs to be said, if anything. Ask yourself what outcome you want. Think about what effect your words will have. Ask whether speaking will make your path easier or harder. Ask whether your tone matches your values. Speech is action. If it does not build, protect, or clarify, it often creates more problems than it solves. Ask whether your words will move things toward peace or escalate them. Your words can direct the tone of a conversation. They can close an argument or reopen it. They can bring understanding or increase resistance. A single word spoken in pride can undo hours of calm. A word spoken in restraint can end a conflict that was gaining speed. If your words have no purpose, silence serves better. If nothing useful will be added, saying nothing is stronger than saying something weak. Silence is not absence. It is presence without waste. It holds space for clarity. It protects your standard. It gives others a chance to listen. It removes noise from the room. Silence does not mean retreat. It means you are in control of your energy. A Stoic understands that most conversations do not need to be won. They need to be navigated. The goal is not dominance. The goal is order. Arguments won through pride do not lead to respect. Responses grounded in discipline create trust. When your goal is clarity, your voice is measured. When your goal is control, your silence is sharp. If you let silence create room for thought, your words carry more accuracy. You are not rushing to speak. You are preparing to speak well. Each word becomes more exact. The fewer words you use, the more meaning they hold. People listen when you speak because they know your speech carries weight. If you hold back in moments of tension, your actions become harder to manipulate. Your silence shows that you are not emotionally exposed. You are not responding on demand. You are not reactive. This keeps you clear-headed in difficult moments. It also creates pressure on others to speak more carefully. Silence gives you time to choose a response that reflects reason. It gives you room to check your values. It lets you match your words to your principles. This alignment is the sign of discipline. It keeps your responses anchored even when you are under pressure. Your silence under pressure is a form of presence. It is not withdrawal. It is a statement of control. It changes the dynamic in the room. It slows things down. It brings attention back to structure. It makes people listen. It makes your words carry more weight when you do choose to speak. It removes fuel from conflict. Arguments depend on emotional exchange. When you stop feeding that exchange, it begins to lose momentum. If you do not supply energy to that exchange, the argument fades. Your silence breaks the loop. The pattern of escalation stops. You prevent the conversation from reaching unnecessary intensity. It lowers tension. People feel less pressure to defend their position. Their tone softens. Their urgency fades. It gives others space to hear themselves. Without resistance, they begin to listen to their own words. They may hear their own exaggerations. They may realize their own assumptions. This change in pace shifts the dynamic of the interaction. It shows that you are operating from a deeper standard. You are not here to react. You are here to respond with reason. It keeps you stable when others are reaching for control. Emotional pressure often arrives through raised voices, repeated claims, or sudden interruptions. When people try to dominate a situation, they often rely on volume, speed, and repetition. They overwhelm the moment to gain ground. Your silence interrupts that rhythm. You do not follow their pace. You do not return the same tone. You create a still point in the middle of the noise. It signals that you are not competing for power. You are holding your ground. You are choosing structure instead of joining the wave of disruption. This signals strength. It introduces calm where noise was expected. When you stop reacting out loud, your inner voice becomes clearer. Without the habit of automatic speech, you begin to hear your real thoughts. You can examine your feelings without turning them into arguments. You can listen to your own principles more carefully. You hear your own standards without having to explain them to others. You are not covering them with noise. You are not drowning them in fast responses. You are sitting with your thoughts long enough to understand them. You can think, assess, and act with more accuracy. You make fewer errors in judgment. You speak with a tone that reflects preparation. You stop interrupting your own process with unnecessary commentary. You remove extra layers from your thinking. You move toward direct insight. That insight shapes how you act. It allows you to respond instead of react. Your mind becomes sharper. You notice details that would have been lost in a reactive state. You become more aware of patterns in behavior. You become more aware of tone, posture, and pace. You learn to identify manipulation early. You see through exaggeration faster. You respond to facts rather than impressions. You train it to think through situations instead of react to them. This becomes your edge. You are slower to speak, but faster to understand. You develop the habit of applying structure. That structure becomes your guide. It gives you a framework to move through each moment. When emotions rise, you return to the steps you have trained. You stay with your method. You do not drift into chaotic behavior. You hold your posture. You remove confusion from your process. Emotional language, impulsive speech, and rapid exchanges can blur your thinking. Your silence simplifies the situation. It lets the moment settle. It allows the situation to present itself clearly. This makes your thoughts more organized and your behavior more deliberate. Your decisions follow a clear line. Your reactions stay within your principles. Your tone remains consistent. This is what gives your presence weight. Your conduct becomes harder to provoke. You respond only to what matters. You do not rise to personal remarks. You do not chase every interruption. You do not explain yourself to earn approval. You stay focused on the message, not the emotion behind it. People see that you are not easily moved. They sense the discipline behind your quiet. They begin to adjust their tone. They become more cautious in how they speak to you. They lower their voice. They stop rushing. Your presence sets a standard. Your silence sets expectations. Your clarity becomes the example. Your calm sets the rhythm. Others begin to match your pace. The conversation takes on your structure. You have reduced tension by remaining disciplined. This is the result of disciplined silence. It is not instinct. It is developed. It is applied repeatedly. It is sharpened by experience. It is earned through practice and held in pressure. You do not wait for calm to appear, you create it. It is a skill that makes you more effective in all areas of life. It makes you someone others trust in difficult moments. It makes you someone who can hold peace when others cannot. Chapter 7. The Power of Steady Repetition. Consistency builds resilience. The Stoics believed that what you do repeatedly becomes what you are. This applies not only to outward actions, but to thoughts, responses, and the tone you bring to each day. To carry yourself as if nothing bothers you, you must commit to steady repetition of disciplined behavior. Small decisions shape large results. Each moment where you pause before speaking, where you correct your posture, or where you choose principle over pride, becomes a part of your character. These actions seem simple, but they compound. They shape how you handle difficulty, how you carry yourself in silence, and how others begin to experience your presence. When you meet conflict with the same calm posture, you reinforce your own standard. When you bring the same thoughtful tone to repeated challenges, you strengthen the boundary between emotion and conduct. This repetition trains your nervous system, sharpens your thinking, and removes hesitation. It removes the question of what to do because your pattern is already in place. Repetition gives you clarity under stress. The mind performs best with systems it has rehearsed. The Stoics trained themselves by reviewing each day, identifying where they faltered, and correcting it. They did not leave improvement to chance. They treated life as training and reviewed their progress with honesty. This allowed them to meet difficulty with preparation rather than reaction. The Stoic does not seek novelty. They seek structure. They do not chase excitement. They build habits. When calm becomes a habit, it becomes available in pressure. When silence becomes a practice, it becomes strength in tension. These are not emotional reactions. They are learned behaviors, reinforced through repetition. When you act with consistency, others begin to rely on your presence. You become known for your clarity, your restraint, and your steady tone. You are less affected by shifts in mood or changes in conditions. You remain who you are across settings. That reliability creates influence without force. This is how discipline becomes identity. It begins as effort, it becomes rhythm, then it becomes who you are. The small act you repeat today shapes how you respond tomorrow. The choice to stay composed today builds the mental muscle for larger tests ahead. You do not rise to the occasion, you rise to the level of your training. And your training is built on what you repeat without excuse. Chapter 8. Training yourself to stay unshaken. The mind must be trained to remain steady. Emotional control does not appear in moments of stress unless it has been built in moments of calm. The Stoic does not wait for adversity to test their composure. They prepare in advance. They use ordinary situations as opportunities to strengthen their reactions. Each situation is treated as a chance to observe and correct. They do not wait for the stakes to be high. They practice while the pressure is low. Each delay, interruption, or minor insult is treated as a small test. These everyday moments provide consistent training opportunities. Instead of complaining, the Stoic observes their response. They ask, "What am I feeling? Is it helping me respond well? What would a more disciplined response look like?" They take note of what emotions appear. They look at what provoked them and decide if that trigger deserves continued attention. They ask whether those emotions are useful. They measure the effect the emotion has on their thinking and actions. They remind themselves that being disturbed is not automatic. It is a choice. That reminder brings clarity. It separates the event from their interpretation of the event. That separation is where their power exists. Staying unshaken requires intention. It does not happen by accident. It is the result of structured self-awareness. You must be aware of what affects you and how you react. You must observe yourself in motion. You must identify your emotional triggers and create responses that align with reason. That process starts with review. You track what provokes you and practice how to respond better next time. This cannot be done in theory alone. It must be practiced in real interactions. Ideas must meet action. Reflection must meet application. Your behavior in simple moments builds the ability to remain firm in complex ones. Each moment of discipline becomes a rehearsal for larger demands. The Stoics believed in voluntary hardship for this reason. They would practice discomfort, reduce luxuries, and prepare for loss. They removed dependency on comfort to create mental space for control. They created conditions where their mind had to lead rather than follow emotion. They knew that training through minor difficulty made them more capable during real trials. They understood that avoidance builds fragility, while deliberate exposure builds stability. This is not pessimism, it is preparation. It is a method of reducing surprise and increasing stability. It turns difficulty into something familiar. You can train the mind by choosing discomfort with purpose. You can fast. You can expose yourself to cold. You can reduce speech. You can say no to things you want. You can sit with silence instead of distraction. You can do the task you are avoiding. These actions are small but effective. They sharpen your ability to act under pressure. They reduce the grip of fear, hesitation, and discomfort. They teach you to remain centered without external support. They remove the belief that comfort is required for control. They help you act from values instead of feelings. The goal is not to become immune to feeling. Emotional sensitivity can remain. The goal is to respond with clarity in the presence of feeling. You acknowledge what you feel, but you do not act from it without thinking. When emotions rise, your training allows you to remain focused. You have a system in place. You do not guess what to do. You return to what you practiced. When others lose control, you remain deliberate. That difference in response becomes visible. This contrast reveals the value of preparation. It shows that discipline carries real utility in daily life. A steady mind does not need ideal conditions. It performs well because it is structured well. Structure does not guarantee ease, it guarantees direction. That direction prevents you from drifting into reaction. This structure is created through repetition, reflection, and restraint. You rehearse your principles, you review your conduct, you withhold actions that violate your standard. The more often you return to principle under pressure, the easier it becomes to hold your line. That line is the measure of your growth. To stay unshaken is not to avoid emotion. It is to carry emotion without letting it command you. It is to be aware of the weight of a feeling and still choose your next step. This requires repetition. One calm decision builds the next. One act of restraint reinforces the habit. It requires daily reminders. Your values must stay visible. You review them through journaling, reflection, and intention. It requires accepting discomfort as part of the path. Each difficult moment becomes a rep in your training. When this becomes your habit, stability is no longer a reaction. It becomes your way of moving through the world. It is how you lead. It is how you endure. It is how you create strength that does not collapse when pressure increases. Chapter 9. Mastering the space between. The Stoics placed great value on the ability to pause. In the space between stimulus and response, they found freedom. That pause contains your chance to act with reason rather than emotion. It is where your training is tested. It is the space that reveals whether your mind leads your behavior or follows the environment. To live as if nothing bothers you, you must learn to master this space. It is small but powerful. A comment, a delay, a look. All of these can trigger immediate emotion. But emotion does not need to dictate your next move. If you recognize that you have control over the space between feeling and action, You can direct your conduct with precision. This pause is not avoidance. It is reflection. It gives you time to ask better questions. What does this moment require? What is the best response based on principle? What would weaken my position? What would reinforce it? These questions replace impulse with structure. Most regret comes from speaking or acting too quickly. Immediate reactions tend to follow emotion instead of structure. When you move without thought, you increase the risk of saying something you did not mean or doing something that damages your position. When you slow down, you begin to see the consequences before they form. You allow your judgment to lead. You make decisions based on what is necessary, not on what is felt in the moment. This does not make you passive. It makes you accurate. You are still engaged, but your actions are filtered through principle. You are still present, but your attention is directed by reason. You become someone whose actions are shaped by judgment, not by urgency. Your behavior begins to reflect your values consistently, even when tension is high. The Stoics trained for this pause by rehearsing different situations. They imagined offense, hardship, and provocation. They considered how they would respond if insulted or ignored. They prepared themselves mentally by creating the emotional experience in advance. They practiced seeing these events clearly without exaggeration. They removed assumptions and looked at what was actually happening. That clarity gave them room to act without emotional interruption. They were less surprised when problems appeared. They had already thought through their response. In daily life, you can train this space by catching yourself before you speak. You can turn small interactions into practice sessions. When emotion rises, you pause. You become aware of your breath. You recognize the moment before speech. You breathe. You count. You wait. Even a few seconds can change the result. Those few seconds can prevent misunderstanding. They can prevent a reaction that would take hours to undo. This delay interrupts automatic patterns and creates space for intention. You begin to act with greater awareness. You begin to respond with control instead of pressure. Mastering the space between gives you control without tension. You no longer feel obligated to respond to everything. You begin to see how much is unnecessary. You are no longer pulled into every conflict. You no longer follow the emotional rhythm of others. You remain still. You listen without needing to reply immediately. You wait until the moment is ready for your voice. You are no longer required to respond to everything that happens around you. This creates mental clarity. It reduces fatigue. It allows you to use your attention with precision. You move by choice. You speak by decision. You act with alignment. Your actions begin to reflect who you are, not what others expect. This skill builds over consistent practice. It does not come from theory alone. It must be applied in small daily situations. You learn through review, through correction, and through self-awareness. Each time you hold your response for a few extra seconds, you reinforce your control. Each pause is a form of resistance to reactivity. It strengthens the space where your values live. Each time you let that moment pass without reaction, you make strength visible. It shows in your tone, your pace, and your posture. That strength becomes your default. It replaces the old pattern of urgency with steadiness. It becomes how you protect your mind, your time, and your character. It becomes part of your identity, a sign that you do not give away your peace. Chapter 10. The Unshakable Presence. To act as if nothing bothers you is to carry a presence that does not shift under pressure. This presence is quiet. It does not rely on control of others or ideal conditions. It begins in the mind and reveals itself through behavior. This presence is built through choice, repetition, and restraint. It reflects your relationship with your own thoughts more than your relationship with the world. When you walk into a room and carry yourself with calm, people feel it. Your posture communicates direction. Your presence shapes the environment before you speak. You speak less, but each word has weight. People notice that your words are measured. They sense that your voice carries thought, not impulse. You listen fully, without the need to interrupt. You do not speak to compete. You speak when something needs to be said. You do not fill silence with noise. You let silence exist without discomfort. You let others speak without rushing to respond. You do not chase reactions. You observe without needing to adjust your state to meet theirs. You hold your posture. You keep your pace. That steadiness shows that your behavior is guided by principle, not by mood. It reflects self-command. It shows that your choices are structured, even when situations are unpredictable. The Stoics trained to develop this kind of presence. They studied their thoughts daily. They reviewed their words and actions with discipline. They examined their actions and asked whether they aligned with their values. They recorded what caused them to drift from their standards. They corrected errors without self-pity. They practiced simplicity in speech and action. They valued directness. They avoided excess. They stayed close to what was essential. They did not confuse restraint with weakness. They knew that what is restrained becomes concentrated. They understood that strength is shown through consistency, through the ability to carry peace in noise. Their behavior stayed anchored in principle, even when surroundings were chaotic or unjust. An unshakable presence is built in private. It forms when there is no audience. It is developed when no one is watching. It takes shape in ordinary routines. It grows through repeated tests, small moments where you could complain but don't, where you could react but choose silence, where you could rush but stay steady. Each decision is a layer. Each refusal to act on emotion adds weight to your presence. These small acts form the base of your presence. They become part of how you move, speak, and think. Your body learns the habit of stillness. Your voice reflects the habit of clarity. To live with this presence, you must choose what matters. You must narrow your focus. You must learn to ignore distractions without apology. You must let go of unnecessary battles. The Stoic does not attend every insult. They evaluate the value of their reaction. They do not correct every misunderstanding. They are willing to be misunderstood if the correction would drain energy from higher aims. They know what is worth their energy. That clarity becomes part of their presence. They do not seek attention. They do not use appearance to claim authority. They are anchored in attention to what they can control. They are concerned only with their conduct. Each time you act with restraint, your presence strengthens. Restraint signals control. Each time you remain silent in chaos, your presence deepens. Stillness in disorder draws respect. Each time you respond with structure rather than impulse, your presence becomes more defined. You are shaping how others perceive you through repetition. You are training others how to treat you. You are also reminding yourself how to remain steady. You are reinforcing the standard you intend to live by. This presence is not about image, it is about structure. You are not performing, you are practicing. It is not about appearing strong, it is about being structured enough to remain aligned. Alignment gives you stability. You do not pretend to be calm. You become calm through preparation, repetition, and control. You develop a way of moving that reflects your discipline. The results are seen, but the work is internal. When this presence is formed, people begin to expect clarity from you. They begin to trust your pace. They come to you in disorder because they know you are composed. They feel less need to explain themselves. They lower their tone. They adjust to your rhythm. They respect your words because they are not wasted. They follow your pace because it is measured. This is the result of consistent action guided by principle. Repetition builds reputation. Principle builds presence. The Stoic does not aim to be untouched by life. They accept difficulty. They expect resistance. They prepare for both. They aim to remain in command of themselves in the presence of life's challenges. This goal is achieved by training. It is tested by reality. The unshakable presence is the evidence of that command. It shows up in how they speak, how they walk, how they respond to pressure. It is built through years of choosing clarity over impulse, action over reaction, and structure over chaos. Each choice leaves a mark. Each repetition reinforces the system. This is what it means to act as if nothing bothers you, to carry yourself with strength that is silent, steady, and earned. It is not for display. It is for living well.